What's happening, guys? Happy Sunday and welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. On tonight's show, we're going to be talking about Dynasty Breakouts, or are they Dynasty Fakeouts? I'll tell you who faked me out. I didn't know that he was going to make it tonight because he was running a little behind, but I love him because he's always here. He's not always there when I call, but he's always on time. He is, in fact, the man of the hour and the man with the power. Jerry Sinclair, buddy, what's going on in Iowa?
Yeah, I made it by about a minute and a half, so that was good. Well, we got, bad air quality, but what we're not going to have is bad air quality on this podcast, Randy. So what the hell's new with you?
Well, I like that. The air quality here in Indianapolis is okay. A little overcast today, a little bit of rain. They tried to blame the Canadian wildfires. I just think that's kind of weak. It's like the air here in the States wasn't that great to begin with. Like, who was running around the United States of America talking about their great air quality? Alaska, maybe Alaska, maybe Hawaii. But like really the rest of us, it's been like a whole thing for a long time. But we have a huge show. We're jam-packed. We're wall-to-wall. We've even got news. Jerry and I typically do not do news, but there were two huge Dynasty-related stories we absolutely have to tackle. Then we're going to get to some Dynasty, some players that we think we're going to break out, but things have just not fallen in their favor. And they were once going to break out, now they're just going to fake you out. Real quick, you need to be subscribed 4 places: 2 YouTube channels, 2 podcast channels, Player Profiler and Dynasty WarZone. If you're listening via podcast, go find the other one. If you're listening on Player Profiler, find Dynasty WarZone, vice versa. Same thing with YouTube, because right now we've got great content, not only coming out with bonus shows from myself, but our guys Dallas and Jesse have been continuing to drop extra content, and you're not going to miss any of it if you're subscribed everywhere. A lot of great stuff. Dynasty WarZone, Player Profiler. Please subscribe to both. Now, Jerry, tomorrow night, guess what I'm doing tomorrow night? You'll never guess what I'm doing tomorrow night.
Going to see Barbie in theaters.
If I didn't already have the one and only Ryan McDowell coming on the Kiss the Ring podcast, we're going to talk about what it's like commissioning or helping co-commission the largest fantasy football tournament in the world. It's called the Scott Fish Bowl. We're going to ask him a lot of questions about his role within the Scott Fish Bowl, how long he's been helping, best advice for fantasy commissioners, whether you're a redraft gamer or you're a dynasty gamer. Ryan is always must-listen content, so it'll be live on YouTube Monday night and then podcast later in the week. You don't want to move that. And then, Jerry, do you know Halal FF, at Halal FF? His name's Mark Garcia.
Yep.
He's going to be doing a podcast here on Player Profiler. It's called The First Mover. I guess he's the new host. The First Mover, I think, is an existing podcast. But he linked up with me, and, he's going to be doing a show. So be on the lookout. This is why you subscribe everywhere.
So easy.
It's super duper easy. And Jerry, how much does it cost to subscribe to the Player Profiler and Dynasty WarZone YouTube channels?
That's free 30.
It's free 99. You got it. And how much is it to subscribe to both podcast channels?
A whole bunch of nothing.
$0.0. It's free to subscribe everywhere. You'll never miss a bit of content. Now, we're going to go not only into good people, bad tweets, we're going to go into the news, but we're going to do that right after a quick word from the Podfather talking to us about our friends at Underdog. We'll be right back.
Let's take a moment to talk about Underdog Fantasy. Now, many of you have already signed up. Thousands have signed up from Player Profiler already over the years. Underdog has supported us since 2020. Much of what you see on Player Profiler is because of Underdog, because of their support. Get the Underdog app, plug in that promo code Underworld. I used to play Underdog just for the best ball drafts. The best ball drafts are amazing. These draft rooms fill so quickly, and you can win life-changing money. You want to take advantage of all the sleepers we talk about on this show? Well, what better place than in an Underdog draft room to do that? And I recommend taking your Underdog play to the next level by diving into their NFL pick'ems. It's important to correlate those NFL pick'ems. You can pick both the quarterbacks and the wide receivers to exceed expectations. Correlate them, and you can 5x your payout. Bada bing, bada boom. Underdog Fantasy, the promo code is Underworld. For an instant deposit match up to $100. Underdog is the truest friend of the Underworld.
Yeah, and on my end, there was a little bit of feedback, but that is Underdog. You guys have heard of Underdog forever, and the code word is Underworld. So check them out. Support our sponsors that keep us on the air for free. Now, Jerry, are you ready to get into what we like to call good people, bad tweets?
Well, let's see what we got going, buddy.
Well, this one right here, it wasn't really so much of like a fantasy football take. It was just, now, have you ever done a personality profile test, like for a job or anywhere along the way?
Yeah.
Where it tells you like your top
highly
five
agree, disagree. Yeah, I've done those.
Yeah. The Gallup Strengths Finders one. There's another one. I've done these for a couple of jobs. My wife's an HR director, so she's had me do them. She's had my son do them. Like my number one is competition. I might be the most competitive person you'll ever meet. Super competitive person. But the other day I saw this tweet, and it's really about being a competitor. And the original tweet was from Chase Snyder at Chasing Snyder. It said, Max Crosby made the mistake of waking up Patrick Mahomes. And then a gentleman named Jarrett Bailey at J Bailey NFL said, if Patrick Mahomes ever says you woke up the wrong motherfucker, just pack it in and accept your fate. I do not accept that answer, Jared. I do not agree. I am a competitor. As a matter of fact, not only do I not give a shit if I woke up my competition, I want them at their best. I don't want them to ever look back and say, hey, you know what? You beat me, but I wasn't at my best that day. Absolutely not. I want your A game. I want the best that you can bring. Real competitors think that way. I grew up with the glory days of Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady. Jerry, do you think Peyton Manning ever said Tom Brady was better than him?
I cannot imagine he did.
Do you think Tom Brady was ever afraid of Peyton Manning?
Not a chance.
First of all, they don't even play the same side of the ball. That's one. That's number one. Number two, they're not. They're like, just get done with your turn so I can have my turn. Sure, these guys have a ton of respect for Patrick Mahomes and, but if I'm Josh Allen, I'm not scared of anybody. I'm just waiting for my turn. I need to go last. I respect what you can do, but I'm never going to pack it in and never say, oh, I woke up the wrong motherfucker. No, never once in 1,000 bajillion million years am I ever saying that. There's like a chicken shittedness to that does not jive well to me. And when I walk on the field, I walk on the field to win. Now, am I always going to win? No, because someone's going to show up better than me occasionally, once in a while. It happens, but I just don't operate that way. Jerry, what do you think when I say that?
See, I am the Max Crosby of this situation. I just like talking shit. And I mean, maybe it's because we're from right down the road from each other, because he went to Eastern Michigan, which is right where I grew up at. I love chirping. I chirp to you. I have said how much I like to taste the tears of my league mates while I'm drinking all of them down from championship trophies numerous times on this podcast. And I will continue to say it because I love talking shit. So that's me. The problem is when you are that person, you better win or you're going to look real stupid.
Well, I appreciate the notorious in the chat getting you hyped, man. This is how I roll, dude. I mean, you can beat me, and I will tell you, I am a good loser. If you win fair and square, I will shake your hand. I am an obnoxious winner. Ask any of my league mates. Ask anybody in any league that I am. Like, I will change my team name to the trilogy, the champ, whatever it is. I will wear you out. But I do not want to spend a ton of time on good people, bad tweets, because we actually have some news. But Dana White, what do we say?
Federal prison. Federal fucking prison. If you're that fucking stupid.
Thank you, Dana. Yes, anyone who doesn't want to compete at the highest of levels and is scared, go to federal prison. All right, Jerry, there was some breaking news this week.
Which is wild.
Big piece of news. Now, we kind of called this, by the way. Not saying we were right, but we were saying back in February, don't freak out on Joe Mixon. If anything, go look to explore cheap Joe Mixon. On Saturday, Joe Mixon and his agent agreed to a restructured contract. Then not only did we get it right and say that Joe Mixon was going to play his ball in Cincinnati in 2023, it looks like he's going to do it in 23 and 24. Huge win. If you were out acquiring Joe Mixon, you won. You won the offseason. He was one of my buys. I've done this on a bunch of different things, whether it be the Dynasty WarZone. I've done it on some shorts for PlayerProfiler. Joe Mixon. The guy literally had 75 targets in 14 games. He could literally get 100 targets this year, as crazy as that is to say. And now you've won. This is, again, I don't mean to be mean. I don't say this to be mean. I'm just saying it. But no one cares what you think. What do you know? No one cares what you would do as the general manager of the Cincinnati Bengals. What are the Bengals actually going to do? What do we know? We know the Bengals owner, Brown, I think it's Mike Brown. At least Paul Brown was his dad. Mike Brown's the son, kind of like the guys with the Raiders, the Davises. But he's notoriously cheap. He will like squeeze and shake couch cushions over and over and over and over again to get every last penny out of them. He's already paid Joe Mixon guaranteed money. He wasn't going to not get Joe Mixon in 2023. That money, that check was written. Getting 24 is just a happy bonus. So I think this is huge. You're not going to be able to get him now. Good luck. Good luck with all the redraft starting up, hot and heavy. Here at Player Profiler, we've got so much good redraft and seasonal content, whether that be, first class fantasy, anything with Theo and Billy and all those guys. The Podfather's got Mind to Mansion going on right now. Everybody's on Joe Mixon. You missed the boat. You missed the boat on Joe Mixon because now you can't get him because now you got to pay retail plus 10% because he's a Bengal, good team, going to score a lot of points. This is why you do not overreact to the little things. Jerry, take it away.
This is why you zig when everybody is zagging, buddy. I mean, goodness gracious, especially with a running back who is creeping towards that age apex. You always want to do that because at some point, they're going to go from being that new hotness to perceived as old and busted. And there was a window where he was in that old and busted stage where everyone thought he was going to end up in a new landing spot or he was going to get suspended or whatever Joe Mixon was going to do. Listen, you said it months ago. The Cincinnati Bengals have a window where they can win Super Bowls. And Joe Mixon can help them do that. They're not going to try to rely on Travion Williams when it's crunch time in the Super Bowl. It was an easy decision. It was easy to acquire. Thank you. I will sign up. I will take it. You know me. I love running backs that people just think are not sexy because that is when their acquisition cost is best and their production usually will outweigh that every single time. And if you took that opportunity, your nipples are diamond hard right now. Because you got him for, what'd you get him for, Randy? Like cheap RB2 prices, RB3 prices.
I got several Joe Mixons for seconds when the alleged news came out of whatever the hell's going on. I mean, Alvin Kamara literally copped a plea deal the other day. We're going to talk about him later in the show because he impacts one of my guys. It's the NFL. They're slow moving on these things. They've really, they had the whole Ray Rice debacle. You've had the Kareem Hunt thing. You've had so many of these player off the field issues. Right now, they're really taking their time and they're more about getting it right than being right. So that they're trying to make sure that they hand out punishment, but they're not rushing to judgment as exampled by the Alvin Kamara thing. I think Joe Mixon is going to smash and I love the people. I literally shake my head and sigh, talk about his rushing efficiency metrics. I could give a dog's fat ass less about his goddamn rushing efficiency numbers. I don't care.
Yeah.
Keep me happy with 100 targets this year. I don't care about all the rushing. Let Chase Brown plod for 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I don't care. Bring in Zeke Elliott for 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I do not care. I want the receptions. I want all that goal line work. I want Joe Mixon to continue to be the man.
I just want all the work. Look at the backfields in the NFL. How many of these situations have a running back that's virtually by himself? There's not many.
Not even Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's about the best you're going to get. Maybe Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. And Joe Mixon is in that category. And we're just poo-pooing on this man. That was bad strategy.
Well, Jerry, I loved it because I love it. I love it because I was right, and everybody likes to be right, because we're wrong plenty too. But I love it when we're right. So just real quick for being right. Let's talk about another one where we were right. And this one right here, I have a very special sounder for these people.
It hurts, doesn't it? All your dreams just hops down the fucking drain.
That was going to be for my guy Traylon Burks. He was going to be one of my fake outs even before the news. And then a man named DeAndre Hopkins signs in Tennessee. Oh, I was insufferable. I think that was the word, insufferable, on Twitter, because I had a feeling this was going to happen. You see, if sometimes it's good to get outside of the fantasy space and just listen to people within the NFL. That's kind of how I got the Joe Mixon one right. If you don't want to continue listening to the Dynasty WarZone, Jerry and I, we got your back. We're going to continue to put the right dynasty spin on the news that we hear so that you continue to make the right moves in your dynasty leagues. But this was a foregone conclusion. Jerry, speaking of being scared and competitive, do you think Mike Vrabel's competitive?
Yeah. I think he eats light bulbs as snacks, actually.
Like appetizers. Snacks on danger, dines on death. And I love Mike Vrabel. And you know what Mike Vrabel's going to do this year? He's going to play a second place divisional schedule. No Cincinnati, no Buffalo, no Kansas City. It's a second place divisional schedule, 2 games against the Colts, 2 games against the Texans, a Jaguars team that they're not afraid of. Mike Vrabel understands that he's 2 years removed, 2 years, not even, like 18 months, technically an actual number of days away from being or where he was the number 1 seed in the AFC. He always saw this offense. And Jerry, you know what I noticed last year? Could you tell during the offseason that it didn't seem like Vrabel was the biggest fan of Traylon Burks?
No, definitely not.
I mean, you go back to something like if you throw in, Twitter or like do a quick search, Traylon Burks, Mike Vrabel, the comments aren't flattering. And I understand that he's got first round draft capital, but you know what? That GM's gone. That man's gone. Rand Carthon's in. I forget that guy's name. He's gone. And the guy who just brought in DeAndre Hopkins is in charge. And they clearly are seeing him as the one. And this was an offense. I did the math earlier. They didn't throw the ball a lot last year, Jer. No. They threw the ball on average. I'm sorry. I did it over 50 games. 50 games, 50 games. They averaged 29.2 attempts per game and completed 19.2 passes per game. So you're going to chop that up between Burks and Hopkins and Okonkwo and all the other ancillary receivers and the running backs. Good luck. Good luck. 4 for 50 incoming. Sorry about that, Jerry.
I mean, you're not wrong, though. I mean, if anything, does Ryan Tannehill benefit the most from this?
Oh, clearly. If you have a crusty, dusty Ryan Tannehill share,
he's at least something now, and he was nothing.
And conversely, you're probably a year away from figuring out what Will Levis is, barring injury. I will also say, not only in his time in Tennessee, but his time overall is that, Ryan Tannehill has had injury issues going clear back to his time with the Dolphins. So if you're a Will Levis supporter like I am, like our buddy Cody Carpentier is, you're probably going to have to wait a little bit, because I think this move says Tennessee's like, we're going for this. We feel like we're a playoff team. We're not rebuilding. We're not retooling. We're going to go out and try to win the AFC South. We're not scared of Trevor Lawrence. And we were the top gun 2 years ago, and that's what they're doing. By the way, the notorious JR in the chat, you got to love the good play on words. He's like, yeah, Chig's value just got nuked. I like what you did there, Notorious. Jerry, what else you got on this one? And we'll move on into some breakouts.
Yeah, no. I mean, you were hoping for a better situation if you were, you were holding on to DeAndre Hopkins in the hopes that maybe he could have one more run. That's sort of the bad news there. Traylon Burks, you want to talk about a fake out? There we are. I mean, Randy, let's roll.
Well, just real quick, it's like, who's been the wide receiver 1 and the wide receiver 2 of relevance in the last 50 games with Tennessee? I mean, you'd literally have to go look. If I ask you,
AJ Brown's been gone, it's been a sack of potatoes.
And even the last season, AJ Brown was there. He was hurt a good portion of the time. So, Jerry, it's been a tough day for those people. You ever watch game shows as a kid?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the classic Pressure Luck?
That's the whammies, no whammies.
You know, that's what Traylon Burks and Chig Okonkwo GMs were doing this offseason. Here's what happened. Here's what they were doing all offseason.
Big bucks, no whammies, stop!
Stop it out.
You got the whammy, and we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about breakouts and fake outs here in just 1 second, but we're going to run one more timeout, just one more quick break, and we're going to hear about the world famous in quotations draft kit, because redraft and seasonal stuff is right around the corner. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's the Podfather. I have great news. The 2023 draft kit is live. It is world famous. Why? Because it is the best resource for winning fantasy football championships that exists. There are rankings and cheat sheets for every format you can imagine. We have projections both at the team level and the player level. And wherever you are, you can click on a player, open them up, and see in-depth written analysis about what to expect in fantasy football from that player this year. And then you can click on the team, and you can get even more in-depth analysis, all the drivers of fantasy production, both in a positive and negative direction for that team, including a signature trend. And the graphics are incredible. So these team insights, they give you the team level projections, the vacated targets, the vacated ARs, and that one dynamic for each team that you need to know when making decisions on draft day. And we added a bunch of features. I mean, individual cheat sheets for Theo and Billy and Dario. So you could take your favorite analyst and download their personal draft cheat sheet. And then in the commissioners section, also brand new this year, Memphis Young lays out everything you need to know to manage a league, do's, don'ts, tips, and what the more innovative fantasy commissioners are doing this year. That's presented by Trophy Smack. The whole package is presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship, the FFPC, Ray Garvin, Derek Brown, the best minds in the industry contributing analysis. It's certainly not the most inexpensive draft kit on the market, but it is the best. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. Go get it.
Absolutely, you need to go get it. That is the best draft kit. Now, I'm biased. I'm going to be the first to admit I am biased. It is the best draft kit. And Jerry, you know, you caught lucky because we all did guys. Like my two guys in the draft kit, I did Najee Harris and I did Evan Ingram. You did a guy who we just talked about. You struck fantasy gold for your guy. Who was it?
Joe Mixon, baby.
Joe Mixon. See, Jerry took my thought and he took the right guy in the Player Profiler draft kit. Again, it's great. Very proud of my contributions, whether it be the two guys I covered or the commissioner section, which ties right back into the Kiss the Ring podcast, which I'll be doing with Ryan McDowell. I see all you people watching in the chat. I expect you to come back tomorrow night, same time on a Monday, and hear from Mr. McDowell. But all right, Jerry, let's get into some guys that we were thinking as little as like 1 to 3 months ago, they were due for a breakout. Now, in all fairness to the listeners, because Jerry and I do not cut corners as it relates to giving you guys content. As soon as we figured out the Trailenbergs and Chig Okonkwo, as soon as we figured out those guys were going to get nuked by nuke, I see what you did there, Notorious, and I'm stealing it. As soon as we realized they got nuked, those guys were off limits. We had to come up with new guys because Trailenbergs was one of mine. So, Jerry, I'm going to let you go first. Who is a rookie that we were thinking earlier, like as recently as May, that you were thinking was going to break out, but now they're just going to fake you out?
What's weird about this one is I had a bunch of guys that I was going to pick, but I have sort of either talked about the people that are in their offense already in the last couple episodes, or I have a history of just crapping on these players. I'm looking at you, A-Chain, so I'm not going to do him. I'm going to do somebody that I really like and got good draft capital, is in a pretty good situation, but I just think he's going to be super disappointing this year, and it's Jordan Addison. He is always going to be second fiddle to Justin Jefferson. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. That is the reality of that situation. TJ Hawkinson emerged as a good target for Kirk Cousins. He's just going to be third fiddle. And if Minnesota ends up falling off, it's not going to be good going forward either. Like, I love Jordan Addison's talent. He has also had the benefit of having some of the absolute premier college quarterbacks as his quarterbacks. He had Kenny Pickett, who was a first-round draft pick, NFL starting quarterback, Heisman finalist at Pittsburgh, and then he transfers to USC and he gets Heisman winner and another Heisman finalist in Caleb Williams, probably the first pick in the draft next year. And he got a little bit worse with Caleb Williams. Don't get me wrong, but there was a little bit more talent in USC then. It's just a situation that has me trepidatious, to use a DWZ word. Because this is the thing, like you can love a person as a prospect and they could still not return the value in Dynasty as much as you would like them to. I mean, we this happens every single year, and I know it hurts to say. It's hurting me to say it currently. This one just feels a little iffy, and I could have done this for, honestly, Randy, any of the rookie wide receivers, because either way, I got to deal with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I got to deal with Justin Jefferson. I got to deal with DK Metcalf and Geno Smith. Like, there's a lot of red flags with a lot of the rookies. I feel like I have not done Jordan Addison and the absolute, this is not a molehill. Justin Jefferson is a mountain to deal with when it comes to target share.
Well, normally I try to agree with you, but I'm never going to force it. In this case, I don't agree with this one, and I'll tell you why. It's because Adam Thielen leaves behind 107 targets. And even if that's all that Jordan Addison gets is the 107, I think it's enough. But I also think he can chisel a few away from KJ Osborne, who had 90. I'm really curious to see how much his role impacts that of your boy TJ Hawkinson. But then again, maybe more targets go to the receivers because Dalvin Cook's not there, and I don't think Alexander Madison's going to be quite the pass catcher of Dalvin Cook. I mean, Alexander Madison had 18 targets last year, and Cook leaves behind 56. So
my biggest worry, Randy, is if he gets 950 yards as a rookie. Okay, that's good enough showing. It's showing that you're capable of doing it. And the problem is that's going to create the hype going into next offseason, and Justin Jefferson is still going to be there. And Kirk Cousins is not going to be under contract, and it's just a completely different situation. What happens if a different quarterback comes in? There is just too much volatility for me. And he's expensive. Let's be honest.
I will give you that. The expense I will give you, but I don't. My concern with Jordan Addison isn't necessarily this year. I think it's tough to bank on rookie production from a wide receiver early, or any pass catcher, to be quite honest.
Fair.
This offense is just so high volume. The defense is not any good. I forget the name of their good edge rusher that could be traded. He's not going to get released at this point. But my long-term concern with him is, what is the QB look like in 2024? And not only for him, but for all these guys. The good thing is about really good players is they tend to do okay. So the one I remember DeAndre Hopkins, we talked about him earlier in the show. I remember him catching balls from guys like Tom Savage and Brock Osweiler. So Justin Jefferson, I'm totally good with. But I do agree with you, not so much in the short term. I definitely agree with you. It could be an issue in the long term, but I think they'll be okay. My guy's Kendre Miller, and I really, really, really like Kendre Miller. Here's why I'm worried. Now, I'm actually going to use my concern now to make him a buy going into the fall, because I know Alvin Kamara is going to get suspended. I know anything involving a felony, and I heard this on another podcast the other day, requires a minimum of like so many games. But because he pled no contest to a misdemeanor, it means his suspension could be as small as 2 games. And they brought in your boy, former Detroit Lion, Jamal Williams. I love Jamal Williams and his Pokemon hats and all the fun stuff he does. But I'm just concerned about what this offense is going to look like. So if he comes in and he looks good, I don't want to put this evil on him. But if Alvin Kamara, the veteran, and Jamal Williams, the veteran, play well, we could have a Zamir White situation on our hands. And that makes me very concerned. Now, but just like Zamir White, Josh Jacobs said if he didn't get a contract by tomorrow, we're recording this on Sunday the 16th, Josh Jacobs said if he didn't get a contract, he's not coming to camp. Now, players have had a change of heart before, but all of this adds up to, and plus he missed all of mini camp. He missed, voluntary rookie camp and all those other little ancillary camps they do in the spring. And to me, it just all adds up to not being a breakout season for Kendre Miller. And if he does, maybe he breaks out a little bit later in the year, but I think he gets off to a slow start. I was really hoping that he was going to get those first 10 games to solidify himself in that role. But due to the two veterans in front of him, my breakout on him has been slowed down just a little bit on Kendre Miller. What are your thoughts?
I am not going to be mad at you, and that pisses me off a little bit too, because I got a lot of Kendre Miller. I really like Kendre Miller.
My number one, and guys, this is the Dynasty WarZone etiquette and ethics that we roll with. I'm going to tell you that I don't think he's breaking out this year. He's my number one most rostered rookie out of all my 20 some odd rookie drafts. He's my number one most I don't do this for entertainment. I hope I'm entertaining. I try to be entertaining, but I don't do this just to get clicks and downloads. I really have concerns about Kendre Miller, and I wouldn't say that because I know my league mates are listening. I know people are listening because it's the Player Profiler YouTube channel and podcast channel. But I have real concerns about what his role is going to be now that I think Alvin Kamara is going to get less of a suspension, because my initial hype was based around I thought the suspension was going to be in the 6 to 10 game range.
Which is fair, and now it's definitely not. It sucks because I think you're right. And if he doesn't, if he sort of is that third running back in the pecking order, which seems pretty likely for the most part, what's his value going to be like in 12 months from now?
It's going to be
not going up.
It's going to be a firm buy for me. So I'm not telling you to buy Kendre Miller today. Let's get to camp. Let's get the official word on the Alvin Kamara suspension. Let the NFL have their say. If it's 2 games, it's a bummer. Unless you have Alvin Kamara, then it's a big win. But if it's 6 games, okay. Plus, we have to see him because he hasn't played since the national championship game because of his knee. So a lot to happen with Kendre and the entire Saints backfield. I do think you'll see him a little bit, but he's going to be the perfect mid-season buy somewhere around like Halloween. I'm going to be all over trying to scoop Kendre Miller right then and there.
Randy, I think it's going to be a ton of these rookies. I think a ton of these rookies are going to be a lot more acquirable once point scoring season starts. Because a lot of them, we have built up rookie hype, and rookie hype always will happen, and we have to just pour the cold water on it every once in a while. But it stabilizes their value. They retain it to an extent. The problem is a lot of production is not going to equate to fantasy success with a lot of these rookies. Outside of Bijan, who's really in just a great spot to just immediately be a fantasy starting asset?
Bryce Young. CJ,
but are they helping you win? Are they helping you win right now? I don't know if they are. That's what I'm saying. Like they're definitely starting or good QB3 for you.
We won't know about the rookies and their value because I think Anthony Richardson could be an absolute smash.
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, I get your overall point. Like JSN could get off to a slow start. He's got a couple of true studs in front of him. I think it just paints that picture of we got to be careful being overly reliant on rookies because you're going to have your absolute smashes. I'm going to have 0.0 concerns about Marvin Harrison Jr. this time next year. But most guys, Bijan Robinson, he's in that class. Caleb Williams next year will be in that.
Have some worries.
There's always going to be a handful of guys, but that's fair. But that's why, because we don't want you to continue to trade for, or if you're still doing startups or for whatever reason. And I hope you do. I hope you're the person who has not done your rookie draft yet, because every August you and the gang get together, you play 18 holes of golf, you drink some beers, you hang out, and you do a live rookie draft, because I know those things exist, and that's super awesome. I just want you to temper your expectations on these couple of rookies with Jerry and I, because it's hard for rookies anyway. Rookies are very exciting. You want to see some stuff, but you have to be careful because only a handful ever actually really help you. So there's our rookie guy. Now, Jerry, who's your guy going into year 2? You can't say Chig Okonkwo. You can't say Treylon Burks. Those guys are off limits. We've already covered those. Who is a guy that you've heard or thought was going to break out, but you're pretty sure they're going to fake you out?
Jameson Williams. What do you want from me?
I almost chose him. It felt like low-hanging fruit, to be honest.
A little bit.
But what are your concerns?
let's grow beyond the fact that Amon-Ra St. Brown is there, and we're going to have to hope that Jared Goff repeats what he did last year. He's never really played tons of big-time football. Like, he had one catch in the NFL. It was a good one. It was very pretty. And his last year at Alabama was unbelievable. That's the only season of big-time football stats that he has. His time at Ohio State, he had less than 10 receptions in both of the seasons. So I've got a guy who played one season of college football, albeit did great, and then goes to the NFL, gets hurt, comes back for 6 games, not 1, not 2, not 3, 6, gets 1 catch. And then he's going to get suspended again, but that is what it is. What has he shown in his entire career that would suggest he is going to be an NFL game changer? He just seems like a guy that's going to rip the roof off every once in a while. And at the end of the season, I think you'll look at it and go, oh, those are pretty good stats. He did pretty good. But when you're starting him, you're never going to notice it.
For me, my concern is where does the volume come from? Where does the volume come from? I mean, there's going to be volume in that offense, but we know Amon-Ra St. Brown's a vacuum. They drafted Sam Laporta. I'm not too concerned with Marvin Jones and, you know, some of those older dusty guys, but they brought in Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine, especially when he comes back from suspension, you know, maybe your dynasty team's 3-3 or 2-4, 4-2. Hopefully you're kicking ass and taking names and you're 6-0. It could happen. But if you're not, I mean, you know, I'm in a lot of leagues, Scott Fishbowl, Jerry, you know, you have to start 3 wide receivers. I have a lot of leagues where you have to start 3 wide receivers. Are you happy hitting the submit roster button with Jameson Williams as your wide receiver 3?
No.
It's not a warm and fuzzy. It's not a warm, like right now I'm looking at the dynasty rankings on PlayerProfiler. You can get this with the all-in package, or you can sign up for Dynasty Deluxe. And, you know, Jameson Williams is wide receiver 39. You know, he's right next to a couple of guys. I know you like one of them in Jonathan Mingo, and the other one you went through graduation with at Michigan State and Jaden Reed. So would you rather have Jaden Reed and Jonathan Mingo, or would you rather have Jameson Williams? The J squad, Jameson, Jaden, and Jonathan.
I think that's a good spot for all of them, honestly. I'd probably take Mingo over anybody else, but just because I feel like he's got a chance to be the one.
I'm gonna disagree slightly. I'm gonna take Jaden Reed over the other two, but we're splitting hairs. We're splitting hairs. There is definite concerns with Jameson Williams.
There is, for sure. But also, if there's a person that's going to make me look dumb on this podcast, it's Jameson Williams. Just because, I'm a Lions fan, so that'll just make me look stupid if he's highly
against
successful.
him.
But in the bits that we have seen the man play the game, he has looked extremely explosive, yada, yada, yada. So if he can hit, he's going to be a monster, which is why I understand why his ADP is where it is at. It's a little scary. And, you know, you can't just consume hype. You gotta chill it out every once in a while.
He's the kind of guy that if I have Jameson Williams on my team, and I, you know how Sleeper, My Fantasy League, ESPN, whatever, they give you like the predicted score. And sometimes you're a favorite, sometimes you're a dog. In a week where I'm a huge dog, that's the week where I'm going to plug in Jameson Williams, almost like a DFS tournament type style play. Well, this guy's supposed to beat me, you know, bad anyway. So do I think that Jameson Williams can score me 40 fantasy points, or do I, you know, do I think a guy like, you know, someone a little bit safer like Hollywood Brown? I guess Hollywood Brown's kind of in that category too, with quarterback play notwithstanding, but you kind of get my point.
Exactly.
You know, he's the kind of guy that could win you a week, but he's also the kind of guy who could give you like his box score, like, or his like weekly average could go like 8, 47, 3, 12, 33, 7. It could look something like that, and it would be very maddening in a submit your roster style lineup.
To compare him to somebody who he played college with, I mean, granted, it's not dynasty relevant anymore because he's in prison, but very Henry Ruggs-ish. You know, he could rip it off for you, but never just going to be the guy that's going to be awesome and win you leagues.
Yeah, my guy's a wide receiver too, and I didn't plan it this way. I walked out of this with a year 2 wide receiver, and my next guy coming up is a tight end, and it's George Pickens. And a lot of people are really bullish on this guy, and I just don't see it. Now, one thing that really matters to me as it was I'm drafting receivers is I like yak. You know, Tyreek Hill, yards after the catch. Justin Jefferson, yards after the catch. You think about all these great wide receivers, yards after the catch. Jerry, George Pickens last year, he had 52 catches last year. How much yak did he have? How many yards? So he had 52 catches.
What are you setting me up for?
It's a number. So he caught 52 catches. How many yards of yak? Like if Justin Jefferson
200.
Cut it in half. 104 yards of yak. He's a catch and fall down guy. He averages 2 yards of yak.
And,
so
and how tall is he? He's like 6'4", right? So
yeah,
that's just 6'2". Falling down. That's 2 yards.
He just falls forward. Yeah, he just falls forward.
At least he falls forward, though.
I don't see where the volume come from. I recently did an edition of the Trade Gods podcast with Matty Kiwoom and Jason. And, you know, Pat Freiermuth last year missed 2 games, and he was on pace for 111 targets. And now he ended up having just right around 92, if I remember correctly. And then Deontay Johnson, I know he didn't have any touchdowns last year. He had 140 some odd targets. This guy had 84, converted 52 of them. I don't see it. I don't, now again, home run style threat, highlight play guy, sure. But, you know, he used to be a value. He's no longer a value, and he's not going to get the volume of targets. He's not going to get a bunch of yards because he's just a catch and fall down guy. But people love him. I don't know if it's because he was a Georgia Bulldog. I don't.
He was a Debbie darling too.
He was. I will say one thing about him, and I try to give both sides of the equation when I bring these guys up. I will say this, kind of like you mentioned with Jameson Williams. This is not, I'm looking for a pass or an out. I'm just being honest. He is another full year removed from his ACL injury. I mentioned on a previous show, I like Chris Godwin. You don't hear a lot of Chris Godwin talk. You don't hear a lot of other fantasy podcasts or dynasty podcasts talking about Chris Godwin. Oh, yeah, he's also another year removed from his ACL injury. We know these guys, the additional year, the additional time, they have a year of confidence on playing on that leg again. Maybe he picks it up. Maybe he plays better. Maybe the yak can develop. I don't see it. His best case for breaking out is if an injury happens to Freiermuth or Deontay Johnson. I think Deontay Johnson is the wide receiver I want there, and I just don't think you're going to get a big George Pickens breakout. What are your thoughts on Pickens?
So Pickens was probably one of my most sold players in season last year because I really did like him coming out of Georgia. Now, granted, I ignored the injury history, which was not a great idea from Jerry, but just watching them play, I really didn't like that offense a ton, and I really didn't think Kenny Pickett was going to do anything for him. Deontay Johnson's definitely my guy in that offense. I mean, I see sort of why people like Pickens. He's a big guy. He can make, pretty good contested catches. Just nothing screams like it's week 17 and I need a wide receiver 3 and I'm going to be happy that I'm plugging in George Pickens. Like I cannot foresee that situation. And if that's not there, then I'm good. I don't need it. I don't see, like, where's the room to grow? What does Kenny Pickett have to do? He would have to grow tremendously as a passer and as a volume offense. And I just don't see Mike Tomlin doing that either to just make him worth my while. So I don't see the path to value.
Yeah, and again, this is why I love PlayerProfiler, because they have so many advanced metrics on their Dynasty Dominator page. He was 94th in the league in target separation. Didn't create a ton of separation. Now, he was really good at contested catches. So if you're looking for a jump, which speaks to his yak, he jumps up, he catches it, he falls down. Just not a guy that I see a ton of efficiency. I see a ton of volume. And every league's got a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, Georgia fan. He's got a lot of positives in areas that don't score fantasy points. I'm moving on from Mr. George Pickens. I didn't have a lot to begin with. I'm always team Deontay Johnson, DJ for life. Jerry, give us your final guy. Give us your third-year guy, because I got news for you, gang. If you don't break out in year 3, you're not breaking out. You might get that 1 year. Where the hell did that come? Devontae Parker had a year like this once.
Yeah,
Ironically,
it took five. It took like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, it took 5 or 6 years. He hasn't had one since. But more often than not, if you don't do it by your 3rd year, you're not going to do it. At least not at the level that people think. So, Jerry, give us your guy.
All right. I'm not going to do this guy, but I wanted to say it, even though he had a good year last year. I just don't know if he's going to live up to the hype that is sort of being built around him. And it's Travis Etienne, which we have had this conversation plenty, but he did break out last year. So it's not fair for me to do it. I'm going to do it to a person who has literally done nothing. And yet for some reason, the Dynasty community still likes him, and I'll just never understand it. And it's Rashod Bateman. Low volume passing offense. Played at Minnesota, which, you know, love my northern Midwesterners, but the guy has done nothing. And now they bring in OBJ. They draft Zay Flowers. Mark Andrews is still there. Lamar Jackson still runs the ball a lot. I can't see it. And I saw him go for like a late first a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, what in the absolute fuck is happening right now? Because I can't. I know he was a first round pick. Like, I get it. This was a dude that was not even the alpha on Minnesota back in the day. It was Tyler Johnson, who was a 7th round pick and is out of the NFL, I think. No disrespect to Tyler Johnson if you're still in the NFL. But, ew. Like, how little does a person have to perform in multiple years of the NFL for you to just finally realize that this is just not going to be it? Like, this is like Ronald Jones. I feel like Ronald Jones for like 4 straight years, everyone's like, he's only 22. Yeah, he's only 24. Like, he's I can't do it. I can't.
Well, I was typing in the chat on YouTube. It's like Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham Jr., Rashod Bateman. I don't, and here's the thing, I don't ever pretend to know the volume of an offense that I don't have any data for. I have no idea. I can go back and get some ideas of what Todd Monken has done and what I think he may do, but I am fading. And, you know, Sean in the YouTube chat right now said, fade all Ravens with receivers, fade all Ravens wide receivers. Never, never, ever, never, never, ever, never, ever fade Mark Andrews unless he's dead or not playing. But we always play Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is going to absolutely smash this year. I love him. Yeah, I'm with you on Bateman. I was never on Bateman. I got to be very nice about Rashod Bateman. That is one of the Podfathers dudes. You know, Matt and some of the guys here at Player Profiler, they were always team Rashod Bateman. He was another guy who was a Devy darling. All of the Devy guys. Yeah. I'm good friends with Nick Whalen.
And he's missed half the damn time he's been in the league. And the games he has been, Randy, 18 games, right? More than a season. Let's look, 800 yards exactly. Fuck up out of here. I've seen a season worth, and I've seen wide receiver 5 worth of production. No, thank you. I'm good.
I could not agree more. Now, I saved this guy for last for a reason. I will put my dukes up. I am ready to fight. I am ready to rumble. My year 3 guy, and when I say he's not going to break out, he's not going to break out to the level you all want, but it's not my job to tell you what you want to hear. It's my job to tell you what you need to hear. It's Kyle Pitts. Now, I didn't pick Justin Fields because I do not want to have a fight with my good friend Nick Whalen. That is Nick's guy. He feels like I've been picking on Justin Fields. I love the rushing.
Let me interrupt you a little bit. I almost picked Fields too.
I did.
But he was QB7 last year, so it's hard for me to not to call him a fake out.
I have to do a better job of delineating between what we do with dynasty and fantasy football and what the real NFL says, because that's like my picadillo. And guys, to know where you struggle with dynasty will always help you. I know that I tend to listen too much to the experts, the non-fantasy players, but I also got to remember that it doesn't matter that they're inefficient or it doesn't matter that they're talented. What matters is, can they score me fantasy points? And if the answer is no, I fade them. And if the answer is yes, I can't fade them. And I believe, even though I don't think Justin Fields will be efficient, I don't think he'll improve a bunch as a passer, I think Justin Fields is going to score us a shitload of fantasy points. But you know who I think's not? Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, that's mean.
You know, Jerry, in 2 years, Arthur Smith went from 573 targets in the passing game, 573 attempts, to 415. Now you might be saying to yourself, 573 is not bad. That was with Matt Ryan, former MVP and kind of on his last leg, but not quite yet, Matt Ryan. And then last year with the dynamic duo of Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder, 415 pass attempts.
One of those who is still there.
Yeah, well, one of those is the starter. So they went from 33 pass attempts per game to 24 pass attempts per game. Oh, and what'd they do? What they went and drafted a guy. Maybe you've heard of him. I've heard he's pretty good running back. His name's Bijan Robinson. So they're like, you know what? We didn't pass a bunch last year. Let's go out and use like the number 8th overall pick on a running back. Oh, and we still have Tyler Algier. Do you think the pass volume goes up or goes down? So 33 attempts under the head coach OC 2 years ago, 24 last year. Now let's say Ridder, this is being fair, real fair, he completes 65% of his passes. 2 years ago, Matt Ryan would have completed 22 passes. Ridder, if they complete 65%, 16 passes. Good luck. Chop that 16 completions up between London, Mac Hollins, Pitts, Bijan, and all the ancillary targets there. It's not his fault, but it's not my fault that I have to tell you that he's not going to be Travis Kelce. He's not going to score like George Kittle. He's not going to score like TJ Hawkinson. He's not even going to score like Mark Andrews or Dallas Goedert. You're hoping for like a tight end 6. And based on what you have to pay for him, it's going to be very tough to ever get back what you're paying for him. So I think he'll be fine. I mean, I think he'll be totally fine, totally usable. There's not going to be like 15 other tight ends better than him. But if you're expecting him to break out and be in that Kelce, Kittle, Andrews, Hawkinson range, I got some other news for you, because I think you're going to be very sad.
Yeah, you're not really going to hear much of a debate from me. The problem is that position is just so bad that if you have him, you're keeping him, and you're not doing anything about it. But I'm with you. He's not going to be Kelce. He can't be Kelce. That's the perfect storm. And yeah, I'm upset a little bit. Now, granted, I am not a person that drafts tight ends. I'm pretty vocal on my hatred of tight ends, so I don't have tons of Kyle Pitts because he went way too early for Jer. But I also don't like to see everybody getting that rookie hype humble pie. This is what we talked about in the beginning of the show, that rookie hype builds so much, and you just need a little bit of cold water, and hyping up a tight end that much has caused people now to be stuck, Randy.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If you have Kyle Pitts, I'm not telling you to sell him for pennies on the dollar. I'm not telling you to cut him. But I'm telling you, it's okay to go out and look for cheap tight end help. Jerry, Scott Fishbowl, it's super tight end premium, right?
Yep.
Super tight end premium. I went out and got Tyler Higbee. Why did I get Tyler Higbee? He had 108 targets last year. Do I think Tyler Higbee on this planet or any other is better than Kyle Pitts? Absolutely not. If I thought Kyle Pitts was going to get the same 108 targets as Tyler Higbee, he would be my tight end 1. The problem is he's not. That's my frustration. He is very, very good at football. He's in a very, very bad situation. You're hoping for some touchdown upside. You know, if he can build off of, like, I think it was 1-2 years ago and then 2 last year, if we can somehow get him in like that 6 to 8 range, it's going to feel a lot better. But unfortunately, not a lot of volume in that offense, Jerry. But there you go. Those are guys that we were hoping and praying and thinking we're going to break out, but probably aren't. And Jerry, I'm going to do a continuation of this. And I'm going to do it with our new friend and our producer, Mr. Behind the Scenes himself, Kevin. We're going to do this on the Dynasty WarZone YouTube channel on Thursday night. So if you want to hear some more guys that we're thinking are going to fake you out and not break out, tune back in on Thursday. Jerry, what do you have for these beautiful, nice people before we get them out of here?
You know, we were pretty mean today. So I think I'm just going to cut it short. You know, it's not nice to sort of, you know, cool people down when they're enjoying their lives. You know, we play this game because we want to enjoy it. And it's not nice that some guy in bumfuck Iowa and Indiana just go raining on their parade. That's really not nice. So
it's not my goal. It's not my goal. Jerry, you know, I know you've seen the classic poker.
This is
poker
the
movie.
last month that we have without football. So we'll make it through.
Now, I know you've seen the classic poker movie Rounders, right? I'm the old guy. I'm Joey Knish. I am giving you the playbook I've put together over years of my bad beats so that you don't have to experience those. Now, sometimes the young guy, the headstrong sharp has to go out and learn on their own. That's cool too. We all learn in a multitude of ways. Jerry and I are just here to try to help give you the best advice that we can to help you with your dynasty rosters. So we're going to get out of here. We're going to ask you for one small thing. Subscribe to 2 YouTube channels and 2 podcast channels, regardless of where you listen. We need you to subscribe to all 4. It's free. It helps everybody else. Helps everybody in Player Profiler, helps everybody at the Dynasty WarZone, and it helps you because it keeps the content free and it keeps the content flowing. So listen, we're going to get out of here. I'll be back tomorrow night, Monday night, with our good friend, Mr. Ryan McDowell, co-commissioner of the Scott Fish Bowl. We're going to talk about his experience in all those years of commissioning leagues. But until tomorrow, that man's name is Jerry Sinclair. You can follow him at JerrySinDWZ on Twitter. You can follow me at DWZ Memphis on Twitter as well. And remember, here at the Dynasty WarZone, we're just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll see you right back here next week. Thanks, guys.